Alright, draft physics video. Almost for a day. Communication. Okay, yes, you're trying to make a point, an argument, and it's just this. There's always these constant bites, these constant nibbles. Just keep poking a stick as you're talking to somebody. In their belly or something. It's like one of those people who talks too close to your face. And you just, it's bugging the fuck out of you. It's bugging the fuck out of you. And there's just a point where you just want to whack the fucker. And, it just makes things so much more difficult when some asshole has to keep doing this finger poking thing with these words that you've made it as clear as you can make it. And he just keeps saying it. There's some sort of so he's saying there's some sort of conservation violation somewhere in my theory, when I've made every effort to point out how it's perfectly consistent with every single one of these, with Maxwell's equations and all this stuff. There's no inconsistency. Everything's accounted for. Every time something goes right, there's something going left. Every time something goes up, there has to be something going down. And there's nothing in everything I've ever said that indicates, oh no, we just create a left turn. It just happened. Just happened. The only thing the theory says is that, yes, you can exchange direction. Something going this way can exchange directions with this one going this way, and the red one can go this way, and the blue one can go that way. And they're perfectly rational exchanges. One goes left, one goes up, the same way they were going, and there's nothing changes except the color. There's nothing invalid there. There's no woo-woo. There's no magic creation process. There's two arrows bouncing off each other. And he just keeps implying there's a conservation problem. And like I said, he's doing this poke. Like that's a nothing statement. Like, well, why are you upset? Oh, because that would be a fucking critical error, jackass. Alright, if I had a theory that violated conservation, if I heard somebody else had it and they had a theory and it violated conservation, I would say it's rubbish. It's not even worth paying attention. Fucking throw it away. It's garbage. Doesn't stand a chance. I mean, how can you be this fucking clueless? Sorry.
The problem is that Emmanuel conflates the term force to mean the actual quanta itself.
Yeah, that's right. And it makes no difference. It's the actual quanta that would have been the force of bent space. Or it would have been the virtual photons of magnetism. Okay, or it would have been the force that moves the electrons through a conductor. Or it would have been, yes, all of those forces, light. The entire electromagnetic spectrum. Yes, that's all force. That's right. Those bits do one thing in one dimension. Period. Nothing inconsistent there at all. Nothing violating the rules, because that's exactly what Einstein's bent space does. That's exactly what Maxwell's virtual photons do. That's exactly what every frickin' photon does. So where's the violation? Why don't you show where I say something, and then show how the thing I said indicates a violation, instead of telling me that I have to get the angels to testify against God. I can't prove evolution is a theory. No, I have to get the angels to say there's no God. That's what he's saying. I have to play in his ball field, in his silly misappropriation of the idea of force. He says force like they have a coherent definition of force when they fucking have bent space, virtual photons for magnetism, virtual photons for the nuclear forces, a bunch of particles that appear and disappear, and he's calling me the person who has no respect for fucking conservation. I mean, fuck you and this bullshit.
Now, I understand how seductive it is in explaining...
It's not seductive, alright? It's rational. It fits the evidence. It unifies physics. Gee, fuck, that's not worth anything. Son of a bitch.
Lesage gravity and some of the...
Okay, again, Lesage gravity. I'm not arguing Lesage gravity. So keep playing that game, all right? I pay my due respect to the fact that a guy 300 years ago had to fucking argue with the same morons that I have to, okay, and then a guy did it 250 years ago and didn't get anywhere because all you fucking rockheads can't see the fucking obvious. All right, that stuff doesn't happen because some fucking geometry says so. That's not physics. That's a fucking answer a God botherer believes in. God botherers fall for that shit. Not rational people.
Interactions and the ideas, and nobody's trying to say about storing.
Yeah, no, you apparently don't have a fucking clue what I'm saying if you think there's a single thing I've said about storing the energy, okay, and that's what force is, energy, and the energy is in the form of these quanta, fuckbrain, all right, and it stores an imbalance, a word I have used at least 10,000 times in these videos, right? I mean, how many fucking times have I said the word imbalance? Indicating there's more of left over here and there's more of right over there. They've been separated. The equilibrium has been separated, and that's what a fucking energy is. Dumbass.
The force, you see. I understand it's a very seductive and powerful.
It's not seductive. Again, yes, and it is powerful, and it is a fact. And it doesn't really matter because I premise and argue my points in exactly that context. And again, if you're going to say I'm violating conservation, you have to do better than say, you don't have any angels testifying.
Analogy. But it causes problems. It really does cause problems.
No, it doesn't. Doesn't one cause a single... So he makes this accusation. It causes problems, and there'll be nothing... There'll be no quotes from me. There'll be no video from me indicating what problem there is. And if he ever does produce one, it'll probably be one that isn't current. All right? Because I have made it really clear now about the whole gravity thing being an absorption of the force. The force is occupied in the matter. It's in it. I mean, it's not Lesage bouncy offy thing.
Careful about, because when we talk about structure of a body as having, or let's say, some of the models graph science has put forward for the structure, and they're just hypothetical loose models.
Yes, and what do the models do? The models do conservation. The models, if something goes in, something goes out. I mean, I've drawn the fucking goddamn, spaceship going around the moon, and I've pointed out, well, look, the spaceship can circle the moon for free, it can do all this stuff for free, and then when it comes back, it's going to make an exchange with the moon. It's going to exchange this direction, okay, that's the way the moon's going to go, and it's going to give it this direction. So it's going to, the spaceship is going to take this way from the moon, and the moon's going to take this way from the spaceship. Perfectly conservational explanation, and using real force as the explanation, not some fake bent space bullshit.
Instantly undermine the idea, to my mind.
Right, to your mind. And again, you're not doing this from a to your mind statement. You're saying that this is a critical flaw, not that one just Hythloday has a problem with, that it's somehow epistemic. No, it's your problem. There's no one could be confused with any semantics here. I mean, I've just said, anytime you see a conservation violation, please point it out, because there isn't any, and you might as well say I'm not getting something or whatever. But I mean, I draw it in explicit little arrows. I color them. I do all this stuff. Look, this many goes in, this many comes out, this many stays. What the fuck are you talking about?
And I understand that you might think not, but that's...
Yeah, I understand that you might not think so, but I don't care, because I'm going to keep telling you got to get angels to testify that God doesn't exist.
The point is that the problem is the dialogue.
The problem is your dialogue. It sucks. It's rude and obnoxious and pretentious and arrogant. I mean, it's goddamn patronizing and silly to tell me I have a conservation problem when I haven't. When I couldn't be more of a fan of conservation. It's just such a bullshit accusation.
Seem to instantly undermine the general principle of Lesage.
Oh, so again, undermine the general principle of Lesage. I'm not, again, I didn't invent this thing because I read Lesage. I didn't think of it. It wasn't I did the same thing he did. I went looking for a rational explanation, and the obvious rational explanation is gravity is a push force, and then I decided to let's make one and see what happens. And what happens was, oh, you can explain magnetism, the nuclear force, time dilation. Yeah, you can explain everything with it. That's what happened, shithead. But I'm not here to defend your notions of Lesage gravity. I'm defending my fucking theory, asshole.
Force, that is something experienced as these bodies, to then talk about the structure of that in terms of the force, the statistical impacts.
The statistical impacts. Again, so yes, the interaction with reality. Real things are what the force is. It's a real thing with real components. They don't come from the angels. They don't come from nowhere. They don't evaporate out of nothing. They don't fly out of nothing. They're not something from nothing. They're something from something. Okay? They are real things and they create real effects. Where have I said otherwise?
And the experience force is to take away the idea of it as a body, and
to take away the idea of it as a body. Again, how have I not made a huge distinction between force and matter? I've made this huge distinction and stated, look, the biggest difference between forces and matter is that matter and forces can interact, but force and force can't. And technically, matter and matter can't. Yes, because force interacts with matter. That's the whole universe is made out of these two components. The little tiny bits and the material bits. And that's it. They're doing all the action. Everything else is an illusion. Maybe you don't understand that. An illusion of just as any cellular organism is an illusion in the sense that the living things are the little cells, and the thing we call the living thing is really just a community of living cells. So it's a wrong impression. Your impression that the material thing is a thing, no, it's a collection of force and material bits. It's a collection of checkers or dominoes or whatever you want to call it. But the underlying structure, it isn't a thing. It is its components.
Lose that notion of force. So then you find yourself talking about the storing of force, which to my mind is
Yeah, the most obvious thing that the whole universe is doing, which is storing force. The sun stored it and now is releasing it. All kinds of examples of how in every bit of rotation, as I just explained in the other video, it's a storage of force. Anything that rotates or spins, it's storing force. Anytime you expand or matter, you're storing force. I mean, yeah. Real stuff goes in, real stuff stays. And then you can let the real stuff out. Where is there a conservation problem?
It has potential, except
it has potential, but I'm gonna claim it has a critical error. I mean, it just doesn't. What sense does that make? I'm not going to temper my accusation that you violated conservation, but then I'm going to say, well, yeah, well. Maybe there's an obvious explanation, like maybe I ought to watch your videos, because apparently you haven't. Because in every single one of them there's conservation. Not in a single one of them do I say something like, well then the bent space does, then the virtual photon does. None of them have that. I mean, there's only two processes happening. There's collision A, head on, and collision B, perpendicular. That's it. Two events. You can't keep track of that two events and the fact that they're all conservational events. I mean, fuck. I mean, this is just so unnecessary. I mean, it's preposterous is what it is. It's just preposterous for you to make this accusation.
You just have to consider it as storing some sort of quantity.
Yeah, I have to consider it as a quantity. I have to consider it as a component of bent space. I have to consider it as a packet of virtual blah blah. I have to consider it as an electron that's in the, that has time traveled, and it's really electron from 1919 that's now in this location, and the same electron will be interact with itself any moment now. The one from the future from 2058, that electron's going to show up and bang into it. I have to do that. No, I don't have to fucking do that. I have to obey Maxwell's laws. I have to obey the inverse square law. I have to obey, you know, the hard science, the real science. I don't have to obey that mush.
Some sort of property of something, yeah. But otherwise, it gets into difficulties. So.
Yeah, he keeps claiming the difficulty. So he cites these two fucking videos, his old ones, and claims I somehow didn't see them or didn't answer the fucking vital points made in them. And I'll claim absolute bullshit to that accusation. Just disgusting. So let's click one of these pieces of shit. Fucking annoying bastard. You know, what do you bet? It's from like 1942. Okay, so the date on it is 2000. Oh, it's February 5th. Well, that's probably in the period where I wasn't watching your videos, yeah. But I still don't. I think I must have reacted to it. It's just bullshit to say I couldn't. But anyway.
Alrighty then. Who says that? They sent you perhaps? Alrighty then.
Oh, I'm sure I saw it. Full of bullshit accusations. Too quiet again. The old videos.
You kind of wish sometimes you had the audacity to just say, that's not true. Somebody says, but this theory says this, or this experiment does that. And Mendham's answer is, well, that's not true.
Oh yeah. So you think this is going to help the argument? This is going to lift it up. You're going to post a link to another shit talker video of yours, and somehow, oh yeah, this elevates the conversation. I made a great point while I was just making douchebag, patronizing, obnoxious, rude, insulting bullshit talk. You're fat, you know that? And stupid. You know, they're in proportion to each other.
Or maybe, ha! He thinks that! Because clearly it's absurd. It's not my theory. It's...
Oh, so nothing's absurd in the world, right? There's Donald Trump being president. That's not absurd. No, somebody who says so is a fool. You're all not Donald Trump, right? That's your argument? You're all smart people, and you don't make mistakes. You don't fuck up catastrophically. Yeah, you do.
Mathematical theory. It's principles.
Right. Geometry. Geometry moves planets. La 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 la. The angels wrote it on the universe. They wrote the little lines that the Earth is following.
Principles of conservation of momentum. And all these displays on the screen. Yeah? And blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, well, he always does that too. That's always his counter-argument when he has no counter-argument is, well, and then you said blah, 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 blah. You know, he just doesn't pay attention to the argument made. Just blah, blahs right over it.
I can't make head and tail of those explanations.
Okay, so so you could cite one of these explanations you can't make head or tail of. Oh, left turn, right turn, up, down, forward, back. Oh yeah, no, that's too complicated. Dumbass.
Occasions. This it's going to the future. You said it's going to the future. Into the future.
Couldn't even tell what he said, but. Yeah, so you think the future is accessible?
I mean, he even uses the example of throwing a baseball in a train, perhaps, understanding that its trajectory goes this way. Is the baseball going into the future?
So he's mocking the idea that we're constantly doing that. We're in a present. He even uses words like this. You know, when he's talking about fields and stuff, he talks about here's the current arrangement. And there'll be a future arrangement. You know, he believes that he's a cause and effects sort of person. So you have a previous condition and you have a future condition. And so he's mocking the very idea that, yes, that's exactly what we're talking about, is conditions. And you have to explain how you went from this condition now to some future condition. And the explanation has to fit with the two products. You can't make something go faster than the speed of light. And you have to obey the laws to get to that future. No, that's not significant. The baseball does, in fact, go faster. Fact.
All right, see you later.
So I'm sure I did play this video. I remember that bullshit. You know, so he's making this accusation. I didn't respond to his point. Well, you haven't gotten to anything, even close to a point yet. We're 2 minutes and 15 seconds into this piece of shit.
The son on his way to work. Yeah, so it's a very privileged position Lennon puts himself in, and how he would hope to dialogue with a professional scientist, armed with all these ready rebuffs, without actually...
Oh, see, still, where's the point in here, right? So you post a link to a video where you're just doing this rag shit, you fucking fat piece of shit. I mean, I'm really done listening to your shit. You can't make a fucking argument on the fucking subject, and fuck you. I'm done listening to your rags, you dumb fucking smelly piece of fucking shit.
Find an experiment for himself. Finding the technical details of the experiments that have been done.
Yeah, I have done that, right. And you look at the technical details and they point out the experiment's a piece of shit. I mean, the fucking mindless marble keeps posting links to goddamn fucking totally contradictory statements, right? He just posted a link to a stupid document that basically said in 1919 they had very little chance of observing solar lensing. Yet it got on the fucking headlines of the New York Times that Einstein's been proven. You do the same fucking shit. Your last video talked about the Einstein's proven by clock calibration or something. Proves special relativity. Well, you're too stupid to even understand that the component of Einstein's special relativity that has to do with velocity and time dilation is can be completely dependent, okay, independent of special relativity. The fact that there's a relationship between velocity and time dilation doesn't prove special relativity. It proves one piece, one item that's not critical to special relativity in any real fundamental way. So it's just bullshit to say, that you've proven special relativity because you proved one component that's used to make special relativity. Because you proved one ingredient safe, the entire pie is safe. You can't even think, you're not even smart enough to figure out that's just another bold overstatement.
I'm proposing specific criticisms to them. All I would say is...
So where the fuck, like I say, he posted a link to a video, and 3 fucking minutes into the video hasn't said a damn fucking thing on the subject.
It's consequences. Think through your ideas for the consequences. If light doesn't leave with a momentum component in that direction, then you're kind of saying that you could use light, powerful laser, as a spaceship braking mechanism, perhaps.
You can use any force as anything, but the idea that you're going to stop a spaceship moving with one of the weakest forces there are, I mean, photons are, you would have to have a laser of incredible strength to sit there and change the motion of a spaceship. So, yeah, but of course theoretically, of course. But not to concede that light is the weakest of the forces. You don't even concede it's a force, for fuck's sake, but it is. I can't believe this is now, so he's making the challenge based on this stupid special relativity argument again. So here he is talking how I'm not conserving momentum because I don't let photons go 2 speeds. They can't go 30 miles this way and the speed of light that way. He says I violated conservation of momentum. Well, go ahead and explain to me how you gave light, a photon, 30 miles this way and the speed of light that way, and it didn't come out to some vector like this, because that's the only possibility. And I haven't violated that anywhere. I'm not the one projecting that things, again, and the argument is, we've already done this argument. I mean, the settled problem is that yes, if you aim it at one specific location for every speed, it'll hit that location without breaking the speed of light. But the problem is you have to aim it, and the aiming is going to be obvious. So again, you're saying you don't need to aim it. Okay, Einstein takes over and the light just goes there. Then I'm going to argue that the rest of the universe should have some appearance of that.
You pump out lasers to the side as you approach the galactic, or some other solar.
Yeah, anytime you let a force out one way, okay, you're going to have to exchange it. It's always an exchange. So something has to go out the other way. Either another force goes out the other way or your material body moves. But that's it. So where, again, he's not playing my video. He's not showing where I've suggested anything else. He's just making this inane, idiotic argument that somehow because he thinks photons can have two momentums, I've broken conservation law. Holy fuck.
System. And, you know, as you've accelerated, you'll decelerate because you'll pump out the energy. You know, M equals MC squared. Get down, Jubilee.
Yeah, and you don't think it works that way? Or do you understand that photons are an incredibly weak force? Do you understand that? Do you understand that tons at a frequency has to be created? And it's a lot harder to create tons at a frequency than it is to create tons at no frequency? You can't figure that out either?
And be reducing your net velocity, net momentum, which would correspond to a loss in velocity if you pumped out. Jubilee, get down. What are you doing?
So again, so somehow in this video, he thinks this video is on his side. He's making a good point here by pointing out, saying something as stupid as, I could shoot lasers outside the side of my ship all day long and it's not going to change my direction. He thinks I could just pump out a bunch of force and it's not going to affect my navigation at all. I could do gigawatts, you know, whatever, of laser beam, giant laser beams that cut people in half. I could shoot that out the side of my ship all day long and my ship's not going to move the other way. But if you think that, you're pretty goddamn fucking stupid.
So, yeah, it's not going into the future. It just sets off with that direction.
It is going to the future. So again, just to pretend it's not true that it is going to the future is stupid. Everything's going to the future at every moment in the present. So it's just idiotic to say it's not. Of course it is. The fact that it's doing it at a vector, you could say that. Well, yes, of course, it's going to the future. It's just doing it on a path. Yes. And where did I say anything otherwise, fuckhead?
And this is part of the reason. Yeah, the little documentary about frames of reference from the black and white film.
Right. And again, I've already referenced this. So again, material objects, globes and bricks and pill bottles, that's the same as nuclear physics. Yep, they're the same thing. I might as well call this proton, and I could call this electron, and let's see how they move on a table. And that'll tell me nuclear physics. Yep, drinking tea proves time dilation. It proves the fact that there's no such thing as an absolute speed, because you can drink tea on a train. That proves it. No more experiments necessary. We've closed the door. We don't need anything else. We don't need to know another fucking thing. We drank tea, so now we know particle physics. Fuck you.
Well, Lord, that's long since.
Yes, you're nonsense. It's a nonsense argument, you fucking putz. It's nonsense to take our visual perceptions of mechanical objects spinning on coasters and say, well, let's turn that into nuclear physics. That's nonsense.
So that was a puzzle. You propose a kinetic particle.
What was a puzzle, right? So you're telling me one of you assholes out there defends this motherfucker, gives him his 3 little thumbs up. You know, the 3 of you somehow understood that he made some sort of argument about something I actually fucking said. No, I don't think so.
Particulate quanta-based on universe, and you can accept that a baseball, when released, within 1 frame of reference within the train, looks to go straight across the carriage, but in actual fact, it's from the external frame of reference, travels the diagonal. But with your postulates of this quanta nature kinetic theory, somehow you have a problem with the idea of a photon of light being released, and it also, from its trajectory, and being dependent on the frame of reference.
No, you can't tell the difference. The baseball changes its speed to accommodate the two forces. The photon can't change its speed. All you can do is change its direction. And I've been over this and over this. And that's it. You can change its direction and it doesn't even take any energy. The baseball, it takes energy. You have to add energy for it to combine the two vectors. Jesus Christ. You're actually subtracting energy, but the point is you're turning two things into one thing. There's no two things into one thing for a photon. The photon isn't combining anything. It's not three-dimensional matter. I've said this. Photons one-dimensional. Mass in one direction. Period. One dimension only. They have no other dimensions. They can't interpret anything. Nothing can hit them and they combine with it. They can just do this stupid head-on collision thing or the perpendicular thing. That's all they got. They have no other options. And it doesn't violate conservation for them to be so. It's perfectly consistent with Maxwell's equations and Einstein's gravity.
And that it truly actually sets off with a component in the other direction. It's not bending.
It doesn't. It has no component because it didn't change its energy. How can it have more momentum when it didn't have any more momentum? It was going the speed of light this way and you turned it to this way. There's no increase in momentum. There's no change. So it's a bullshit argument. Incredible bullshit. This is what you want me to respond to. This is somehow has something, like again, show me where I draw an arrow and the arrow isn't accounted for. Go ahead, show the arrow that's not accounted for. Show where I made a photon turn without an interaction. Show where I didn't account for that interaction having an equal and opposite reaction. Show where that happens somewhere, or quit lying about what I'm saying.
It's not going into the future. It just set off straight as an arrow.
So he said again, it's not going to the future, when of course that's exactly what it's doing. You can't, go ahead, grab the present and show me a present. The present doesn't really exist, jackass. There's the past and there's the future, newsflash, and that's all there is. There's nothing else. The present doesn't really even happen. Barely happens. Let's just say, it barely happens.
In that direction. Perceived to be.
Again, how does this... Where did I say that photons don't travel in straight lines, that photons don't travel vectors, that photons don't do any of that stuff? What I said is you can't take a photon and have it go the speed of light this way and 30 miles an hour that way. What I said is you can't make it go two directions at the same fucking time. Now, how is that a violation of conservation? Merely pointing out the obvious that photons don't go in two fucking directions or three fucking directions.
Perpendicular, transversing the train, by a person in a train, in a spaceship.
Yeah, and again, that's not what it's doing. So again, it doesn't go perpendicular. As pointed out, it goes some positive vector, where I would certainly argue it doesn't go perpendicular because, yes, perpendicular left the building, and so it goes perpendicular. I'm the one arguing it actually goes perpendicular. You're the one arguing that it's, altered to the proper angle, magically, all by itself. You don't even have to touch the laser. It'll automatically shoot the light the wrong way. And it's not quite the same, right? I mean, let's understand. When it's changing the direction of the light, it doesn't mean that it's now applying two forces to create the vector, like the baseball. The baseball is combining forces, shithead. You don't understand that? It goes through the process of acceleration when you throw it. So when you're throwing it, you're really combining 50 miles an hour that way and 30 miles an hour this way. The two are combined, and then the baseball takes the new direction when it leaves your hand. But you have to combine them. The baseball does the combining. Photons don't combine anything. They can't combine velocities because they only have one.
A little note. I was in error a week or so ago, in conversation with Trick, and I didn't.
So this is going to really be on the subject, right? So this isn't a waste of my time. It was tedious and obnoxious enough to watch this video the first fucking time. Now you've made me watch it a second fucking time, and what do you think it's going to do? But just piss me the fuck off. Why would I want to interact with somebody this obnoxious? How do you think inside your head? Oh yeah, Gary's going to find this very intriguing and interesting that I have somehow caught him on something, and there's no explanation whatsoever on what you caught me on. Nothing. Not a single quote of me. Not a single diagram I've drawn. Nothing. Nothing indicating where, oh no, you can't say that. Nothing.
But Pyro also took Trick's position that two people travelling in spaceships both observe each other's clocks to go slower. I thought...
well, I don't see how that could be possible, but oh fine. Cool.
There was an intuitive consistency where if one person saw one's clock go slow, that the natural inverse was true. But I'd forgotten the very principle of relativity, and that there's no preferred reference frame, so it does appear.
But if they have the same reference frame, it's got to be preferred. So I don't even know why you'd concede that point, because that seems just plain fucking silly. The two clocks are going to be doing exactly the same thing. If I'm standing next to somebody and we both have a clock right next to us, those two clocks, if we can see them, what they're doing, they're going to be doing the same thing, whatever it is. And yeah, we're not going to see the dilation because we're as dilated as the clock. Yeah, well that's, now I got to think about that. The clock's dilated the same way, so if you looked at it, what would you see? You'd see it moving faster. And it's really moving slower, right. The light clock moves slower because you force the photon to go this preposterously long distance. So it's going to appear slower if you saw what it was actually doing, but because you're time dilated, it appears it's going the right speed. Because you're not seeing the forward motion, because you just see your little fun motion back and forth, and it's really traveling a preposterous amount of distance. Yeah, so you both see, you look at the clock, it looks normal, because you're broken, the clock's broken. You're just broken in the opposite way.
From one person's point of view, he's stationary at constant velocity, and the other person's flying. This is a problem for Mendham, I think, because he forgets.
Well, now there are two people going in opposite directions, so of course, yes, they'll see each other's clocks as a piece of shit. No doubt about it. The outside observer sees the clock as an absolute piece of steaming shit. It's supposed to be doing this, and instead it's doing this, it's going a huge amount of distance, insanely stupid amount of distance.
To take account when he places his, I think this is a positive compliment here. He forgets to take account of moving his mental abstract.
So again, this vague notion that I haven't accounted for something and blah blah blah, but not one single specific there, not one quote of fucking me in context, nothing, just this vague accusation. Cunt.
Mental frame of reference in thought experiments. And considering that, yes, if you shoot a beam of light from you, say it's one light year to the next star system, and you're halfway there.
I mean, this is in the context, right? So he does this shit after I just said, oh, let's just close the fucking thought experiment thing for a while because, yes, okay, I don't have any gimmick. I don't have any way to catch you on your magical, the photons know where to go. They move forward in the right direction, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I don't have any way to catch you on your magical wrong pointing laser.
You switch on your lights, and halfway there, it takes half a light year for the light to get there. well, if you were doing half the light speed, it'll still take you a quarter the time to get there. So in terms of
You already did this. You already went over all this shit. You don't see how this would be annoying as fuck. You made a recent video on exactly this point. I watched you for 10 minutes preach something I didn't say anything in conflict with, and then I gotta watch you do it again? Like you're being insightful? Fuck.
the person left on Earth, and when you return, that journey still takes conventional times. But what you will measure, if it's in the thought experiment at least, is that the light will leave you at light speed because your clock's running slow.
Yeah, and you'll get to your destination sooner than you would have anticipated, and that should be the, oh, wow, I guess things are fucked up. I'm just saying, we already went over all this. Why are you forcing me to watch this again? Why didn't you just say, don't watch the last 6 minutes of the video? You could have done something besides say what you said already in a new video, that, and preposterously, it's not something I disagree with. You're in perfect agreement with what I've said. For fuck's sake.
An external observer will see you, will see the light, I think. This is very unintuitive. I think an external observer sees the light leave you and sees that you're doing light speed, half light speed, and sees, that probably there must be some trouble of measuring it, doesn't there? I can't quite make sense of it.
Right. Well, you can really make sense of it, because you pointed out, you just have a smoke field in front of you. You're going in the fog. You're driving in galactic gas, so you can see the laser. Or, well, you still need to hit something, of course, but you really don't, because the first photon is just not going to get that far away. So you're gonna be able to, in a way, technically see that, hey, it's not disappearing over the horizon. It's the way it should.
Perhaps somebody could offer in the comments on an external observer. See, there's a timing problem. The external observer may well...
Well, if the observer is far enough away, the ship is this big, and light would move at the speed of light this far, let's say a foot, well, then obviously it'll be quite obvious to see how far the light's progressing.
Time and say, oh, right, see, you can't measure the light. He'll see.
This will be just
you
tedious. Yes. The point is we have little lights that flash in the universe, little planets blow up with a big smiley face on them, and when the light gets to them, so you can see how far the light's progressing. It doesn't matter. You have some gimmick that indicates where the first photon is.
It was fast. But if he was any way of measuring it, he would measure the speed of light. And
Not the outside observer wouldn't. He would see it going. He would see your ship and the speed of light both going very, very fast. But he would see your ship. The light's not leaving your ship at the speed of light. Both of you are moving the speed of light. Well, one of you's, the light's moving the speed of light, but the ship is not losing as much ground to the light as it should. There, that's the way to say it.
Leading you at the speed of light. Okay. Anyway, that's rambled off what I've said. All that needs to be said.
Yeah, it's a shitty video. I've said all that needs to be said. So somewhere he proved that I create a violation of conservation of momentum in here. In-Mendum theory breaks conservation of momentum. He says it in the goddamn text. Where did he demonstrate something I said that violates fucking conservation of momentum? That somewhere I said somewhere an arrow goes somewhere for no reason. Or an arrow comes from nowhere. A force, a piece of force, is created out of nothing and just flies out. Or one just is destroyed and it isn't accounted for. It goes in, but it doesn't make anything move or happen. Where, in anything I've said, have I done that? I mean, it's such an obnoxious goddamn statement to make in goddamn text like that, and then to have a video this fucking lame that doesn't in one single way point out where any momentum is lost in my system at all.
This is approaching a close. I just got a bit of time on my hands before I set myself some goals, some personal goals in maths, physics, and other things. So I consider myself regretful, and perhaps I come across too sarcastic and.
Oh, yeah. Maybe perhaps. Yeah. Sarcastic, patronizing, arrogant, obnoxious. Yes. You're the perfect example of it. You've done it with a perfect straight line vector. Bingo, bullseye. Got it right in the middle. Couldn't do it more perfectly.
As a carry on.
Yes, condescending. Yes.
A run on feeling from our ethics debates.
Which, yes, I don't participate with you because it's impossible, because, yes, you just keep saying the same thing, which is nonsense. Somehow feelings don't matter if they're yours.
But, yeah, I mean, if I think I can make a quick contribution, maybe I'll keep making videos.
So this is what he deliberately pointed to me. He forced me to watch this piece of shit, and then he has a second piece of shit he wants me to watch. So that's got to be even worse than this one, right? Because this was on the left-hand side, which is usually like, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 2, this is number 3, number 4, this is number 1. It's the way it usually works, unless you're violating reasonable laws. It's the way reasonable people kind of count. So this was supposed to be the good one. Well, I'm not watching the second one. Fuck you. There's no argument in this crap. You're fucking obnoxious. I take it as more than just a personal insult. I take it as you being a preposterous cheater to make these fucking claims that you don't back up with a single piece of evidence. You're worse than Ken fucking Wheeler in terms of you can't title a video honestly. You can't make a statement honestly. You sit there and way overstate what you have as somehow a piece of fucking evidence. You know, what you think, oh, critical error. You know, he's got some watercolor paint on it. Yeah, fuck you.